All right, welcome in Women's Sports Club members, old, new, first time, 20th time. We're going to get started in about 60 seconds. As a reminder, we host this session as an open Zoom. You're on auto mute. Please stay there. We do have a discussion section towards the end, but try to, minimize yelling at your dog or letting them out or whatever else goes on for today's meeting. And we're going to give everybody a few more seconds, about 30 seconds to join, and we'll get started in just a minute. Welcome in. And as always, we love an active chat, not just for all your AI robots, but for you guys. So please use the chat during today, drop questions, promote yourself, your company, your property, your brand, what you're up to. Get that chat active. We love a good active chat, and we'll give it about 30 more seconds as if we're admitting a few more people from the waiting room. Love all these AI assistants. I love how much AI loves women's sports. Amazing.
I don't miss a word now, Gina.
I know. This is all recorded. Excellent. All right. We've got most everyone in, I think. We'll have a few more people joining us. Admit. Welcome, Alex. And I'm going to go ahead and have Sports Innovation Lab co-founder, four-time Olympic medalist, Hockey Hall of Famer, IOC board member. The list could go on. Former president of the Women's Sports Foundation. You know her well. Angela's joining us today. Angela Ruggiero. She's going to kick us off with a few words before we dive into the meat of today's Women's Sports Club quarterly club meeting. Ange, what's up?
All right, Gina, thanks for having me. Obviously, thanks for everyone being here. We're showing up. It's hot out. You're here in front of the computer. This is our club. So no, really just want to say welcome to everyone. I love this call quarterly. Hopefully you guys do too, just to get everyone in the room. We have physical meetings too, which Gina will get into later. But yeah, I've been reflecting a bit lately on the evolution of the Women's Sports Club. Sports Innovation Lab about 5 years ago said, hey, there isn't enough investment in women's sports, but there's a market for it. And everyone knew that. And I think the biggest turning point was us saying, let's use our data to show the market that there's an opportunity here. So we kicked off the FAM project, which hopefully everyone on this call has read. It's our annual report, really reporting on the business of women's sports. It's data driven. Now, thankfully, everyone is writing data driven reports talking about the business of women's sports. There's over 10, I think, small private equity funds just focus on women's sports. I mean, I hate to say that I told you so, but I told you so. Our research has been quoted time and time again, our data, our numbers. So super proud of what the evolution of this club, moving from just research reports and strategy and consulting, the things that we're known for, to more a pure data play. And this club is something that we, again, want to keep alive and flourishing. We get deal flow all the time. At some point, we're going to share what we want to do with that. But we're really understanding the ecosystem, and I think have been at the door early on and really understand everyone in the room, the unique challenges that you're all going through. So yeah, I couldn't be more proud of this room. Members like Asia Grazioli, the newest owner of a SailGP team, women's led team. You've got MLB investing in Athletes Unlimited, the league we actually helped shape from the ground up on day one, having a big investor like MLB stepping up. At some point in this call, Gina's going to go around the horn. I want everyone to flex all the amazing opportunities that you all have created, whether it's a partnership, an investment. We want to make sure you promote it, and maybe there's someone in the room that wants to continue to help you. So there's a lot going on, obviously, in the ecosystem. Our job with the Women's Sports Club is to obviously bring us together. We're big on networking, bring the data, and connect you both physically and virtually. So want to say hello and welcome SailGP officially, North Face, Fresh Direct, Next Golf. There's a lot of new and a lot of old. If you're new, please speak up at some point. when we open the mic up. But yeah, the goal of this club, it's been around for a few years now. Thank you to the OGs, Brian Lawler. I know you're there from day one. Others. We just want to continue to accelerate the investments we're seeing, accelerate the understanding of the opportunity of this market, push for more dollars, push for more partnership, push. At the end of the day, life is short. Push for more friends. All right, we all have the same DNA, the same sort of values. Hopefully, you make a friend out of this club, do some deals, and the world will be a better place because of everyone here. So thank you for spending the hour with us. We want to make you a little smarter. You probably know most of this, but if you don't, we're going to land a solid with some of our data. And then again, spend some time talking about what you guys are up to, what you want, and how we can actually add more value to this ecosystem. So I'll hand it back to my amazing CMO, Gina Waldhorn, who I actually got to go to the Stanley Cup playoffs with. That was fun, Gina. We got to see
Yeah,
each
go,
other
go
live,
Cats,
none of this
go.
virtual stuff.
Meow.
But I'll hand it back to you. And again, thank you everyone for being here. There's a lot of women's clubs popping up, a lot of activity in the space, which is amazing. The goal for this is just to again keep everyone connected and yeah, like I said, get a little smarter today. So
Awesome.
hand it over.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for making a career out of breaking and shattering ceilings. Thank you to
I
that
used to
coach.
have to throw my elbow. Now I can just talk, which is
I know,
great.
I want to thank the coach who kicked you off the team when you were 9 years old for being a girl, because we wouldn't be here if he hadn't done that. So
Fired me up.
thank
Fired
you,
me up.
sir, for your poor decision making, but it started a good path. All right, as Ange said, I'm Gina Waldhorn. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Sports Innovation Lab. And sometimes we like to start and ground these meetings and just reminding everyone or introducing those folks who are new. Who's Sports Innovation Lab and why are we the ones running a women's sports club? So if you're not familiar, Sports Innovation Lab, we are a data analytics and insights company that was formed to solve the biggest problem in sports, which is that data on the fan is everywhere. If you want to know who watched, you got to go one place. If you want to know who bought tickets, you got to go to Ticketmaster. If you want to know what they're wearing, you got to buy your Data Fanatics. There's no clear picture of who the sports fan is. And so we built this company to go from a limited sports fan profile, a limited understanding of who fans are that look like this, just based on maybe some social data, some viewership data, to something that looks like this. We wanted to build the industry's first infrastructure and data-driven solution to truly knowing who fans are. And that's what we did. Behind our entire company is the Fluid Fan Graph, the only consumer data cloud that was built with sports and entertainment domain expertise. This Fluid Fan Graph is anchored in the demographics, psychographics, behaviors, transactions of more than 250 million US consumers. And what's really specific and interesting, and why this matters to women's sports, is that when we designed the industry's only consumer data cloud for sports, we did it with women's sports in mind. We made sure that of the thousands of merchants and individual row-level transactions, purchases that we are tracking for these millions and millions of fans, we can see if they're going to an unrivaled game, if they're part of a Love volleyball club, if they bought jerseys from the US women's national team, if they're buying from Playa Society, if they have a USA Gymnastics membership. We can see it all. Everything we've built, all the data we collect, we do so to fairly represent women's sports. And that's why when it came down to producing the research on women's sports, we were able to bring a truly data-driven view. We looked at those 250 million US consumers, and we could figure out what leagues and teams are they actually spending with. Because we believe the truest expression of fandom is through your wallet, right? It's great to watch. Some people, might tune into a game, and that's a fan. But you really want to start to build your business and zero in on those fans that are willing to spend money, buy a ticket, buy that merch, subscribe to your D2C network, whatever it might look like. So through that data cloud, we're tracking, what do they stream? How much do they bet? What teams do they follow? What athlete shops do they buy direct from? And we took all of that data to launch our fan project reports. Last year, we focused on women's sports merch with Rep Her in partnership with Klarna. The year before, we focused on the ROI of women's sports, looking at specific case studies. The year before that, we focused on creating a growth metric to track the acquisition and retention rate of new fans. And all of this information we will drop into the chat. These reports are available for you to download for free. If you have any questions on any of the data that's in there or how it might be customized, do not hesitate to reach out. And then we took all that data and we took that research and we said, let's convene around it. And we launched the Women's Sports Club with one singular mission. As Ange said, there are a lot of clubs and organizations and for women's sports fans, for this and that popping up, and that is great. Rising tide floats all boats. We can't have too many. But here at Sports Innovation Labs Women's Sports Club, we are singularly focused on increasing the dollars spent on media and sponsorship. We want to get athletes more salaries. Yes, we want more investment. We want all of that. But for this club, we are here to bring you the data and help create the networking resources and events focused on moving media dollars from brands and agencies into properties and media channels that support women's sports. We want to showcase the business potential through data to prove the value of what we consider the world's most undervalued asset, women's sports. So we do this in 3 different ways. One, we help with deal making. We make tons of introductions. I'll tell you a little bit more about how you can get involved in that next. 2, we get in person with live events. And 3, we drop the hardcore data on you. And that's where we're going to spend the most of today's virtual time focused on our data. So when it comes to deal making, we have a new Women's Sports Club directory that has been refreshed that will tell you about most of our members. Reach out if you would like a copy of that. But it's important to note that you have access to this club. This club is yours just as much as it is ours. If you have something to promote, if you want to host an exclusive brand dinner at one of your games, or if you want to bring a league or a team to your agency or to your brand office, we can help facilitate that. We put it in our newsletters. We facilitate one-to-one introductions. We host curated networking sessions at our live events. So please take us up on this offer. Get a hold of this directory, ask us to help make some connections, promote what you're up to in our newsletter. We want to make sure this is a living, breathing community that facilitates not just networking, but deal making. Secondarily, we've got some big events. This year, we have decided to focus our events in one place where we believe we can create an accelerated unfair advantage for women's sports, and that is in training and upskilling executives on how to use AI tools to further and accelerate investment in media and sponsorship. So we launched a program called the AI Advantage. We hold more than 50% of those seats exclusively for women's sports executives, properties, brands, agencies, investing. And we've hosted one session in person where we kicked off with our fantastic partners at Microsoft at their beautiful garage in the Soho space, where we brought everybody through a training session on LLMs and how to use fan data within those LLMs to create sponsorship narratives, to uncover fan insights. We designed live websites using tools like Lovable and Bolt. So if you want any information on what we did at that event, we have live stream videos, we have resources. Peyton's going to drop them into the chat for you. We just hosted our second AI Advantage session on June 12th. And this one we focused a bit more on chatbots and agentic AI. And if you don't know what that means, cool, most of us didn't before the session, we trained you on it. So there's videos, there's market maps, there's AI toolkits, and there's actually demos of how you can use data to create ticketing agents to help you maximize ticket revenue and create tools for both internal sales teams and externally for fans. And we actually showed you how we built those live, and we did one for the Nets, and we talked about the Liberty, and it was an awesome session. So we are hosting our third AI session, probably going to be in person, probably in the New York area, maybe around advertising week. We're not positive yet. We're going to set a date for that. But if you haven't signed up for that program to get alerted as soon as the date is released, go ahead and do that. We're dropping that link into the chat. Sign up for the AI Advantage, in person, virtual. We've got 2 more sessions this year. Don't miss it. If you attended, tell us what you thought in the chat. Tell people if you think it's worth their time or not. Would love to hear your feedback. The other events that we have planned this year. Oh, and here you go. If you want to grab your phone and you want access to the links that we're also putting in the chat, we have this great QR code for you. That's going to take you to our market maps, our toolkits, our demos, our live streams, all the good stuff that we're creating for women's sports in and around AI training. Awesome. So next, in terms of events, we will have a group of us out at WNBA All-Star. If you're going to be there, let us know. In true women's sports fashion, we're kind of planning down to the last minute, but Angela will be speaking on stage. We want to make sure we get together. If we can help promote your activation, please let us know. But even more exciting, I think, than WNBA All-Star is, again, for our second year, Women's Sports Club will transform into Club Women's Sports at Advertising Week New York this fall. This was an unbelievable event we hosted last fall for the first time. We had a VIP session with panels. We were so excited to have Midge Purse on stage with us, amongst some others from Rain and some fantastic partners. And it was just an amazing night to network, to talk about and celebrate what we all achieved last year. This year is going to be even bigger, even better. We do have limited sponsor opportunities and partnership opportunities. So if you want to get involved with that event, we love to get creative. Please reach out. That is planning now. We'll probably kind of lock that up in the next month. But save the date. It's around October 7th, 8th, or 9th in New York City. It's a blast. And like we had Jess King from Peloton DJing last year. We'll probably have her back, or another amazing DJ. It was just a blast. So let us know if you want to get involved, want to sponsor, put that on your calendar. That is a big club event not to miss. Now, my favorite part, where we're going to spend most of our time today in our virtual webinar, is our data drop. And, you know, we talk a lot, and Ange kicked us off again about the success, how far we've come. And when we think about what brands and categories have really showed up for women's sports, there's quite a few. Insurance, State Farm, Allstate, Auto, CarMax, Toyota with Olympic sponsorships, Financial, Ally, Technology, Google. But we can't keep going back to the same well. And we know all the folks at all these brands, and they are fighting the good fight. They go after more and more budget, but we cannot all milk the same cow, right? They only have so much budget and time to review all of our millions of proposals. And so while we're kind of getting frustrated and trying to break through to the allies and bothering Andrea and Kate, we got to open our eyes and recognize that there are some big missed opportunities in some massive categories today. And the one I want to focus on today, and shout out AI training, I had ChatGPT mock me up this lovely image just before our call. See, same outfit. That's how fast AI works. Is QSR. Okay, let's talk about quick service restaurants and fast casual. And let's start by understanding the size and the scope of the sponsorship dollars, the absolute machine that sports provides for QSR in men's sports. These quick serve restaurants have built their entire marketing empire in many cases on men's sports. A quick analysis validates that there are over 300 total sponsorship deals held by just the top 5 QSR brands across the major men's leagues. Wendy's alone has more than 80 pro team deals, and McDonald's has more than 55 when it comes to college sports deals. Go one level lower, you've got Chick-fil-A with about 25 deals, getting very involved with naming rights and promotional partners. Pizza Hut gets very involved in stadium, becoming the official pizza provider. They're doing naming rights. Subway, big deals with the NHL, right? I could go on and on. Jersey Mike's, who we are going to give some love. They've definitely stepped up for women's sports. But this is a machine. There is a lot of money being spent by these QSR restaurants. And when we actually start to compare that and look at what I call the great QSR divide between men's and women's sports, it is massive. With over 500 combined QSR sponsorship deals that we've evaluated, that's compared to less than 50. And I think I'm being pretty generous with the less than 50. It could probably be closer to less than 25. You've got every major QSR brand pretty much present in men's sports, making multi-million, multi-year investments, taking on TV. These are very visible investments. These aren't just like, oh, we're going to provide snacks and give them, Chick-fil-A after the game. Like, they are front and center. These are big TV deals, as well as on the ground integrated fan or athlete experiences. In contrast, we're missing most of those massive main brands completely from women's sports. When we do see deals, they're at minimum investment levels. We're not seeing as big deals on TV, and they're taking more of a fragmented kind of one-off approach, right? This is more than a 25x discrepancy here. This is a divide that we should all start to focus on and start helping to build the data-driven business case for women's sports in QSR category. Now, I want to give some love. It's not every brand that hasn't shown up for women's sports. Granted, we see a lot of the main guys missing in action here, right? I don't really see any Taco Bell, McDonald's, Pizza Hut. And if they are doing activations, I will say this, they're not PRing them. I did a lot of research for this. I used different LLMs. I went to validate through sources. I went to the, trusted sources, the Sponsor United, the this and that. So if they are doing deals, a big part of this is also telling the world about these deals, telling other brands that they're doing these deals, because that matters. Brands love to be fast followers. People may not want to be first, but if they hear so-and-so or their competitors doing it, they'll lean in. So if these LLMs, if all of these, aggregators of deals being done aren't picking up some of these women's sports deals between QSRs and women's sports properties, that's a problem in its own self. Now, giving some shout out to some of the early pioneers, Raising Cane's, definitely stepping it up. A lot of different sports, from volleyball to basketball to youth sports. Subway dabbled a little. I think they could do a little bit better, but they did show up for the Canadian WNBA game. Papa John's has an NWSL sponsorship, and big shout out to Jersey Marks, who's a fantastic partner for Athletes Unlimited. So love what they're up to. We're missing anybody taking some front of jerseys. Just looking at NWSL alone, a big fat zero in terms of front of jersey sponsorships, where we see them showing up a lot for men's. And this is all in contrast to the growth rate of women's sports, where Sports Innovation Lab's community growth score showed that women's sports had nearly double the acquisition rate when it comes to new fans and the retention rate when it comes to bringing fans back. And we think about less than 5%, I'm going to go with less than 1%, is the estimated share of total QSR sponsorship dollars in sports that are allocated to women's sports. I think that's being generous. So what could we do to prove that QSR should show up in women's sports? Well, I would argue that the women's sports fan is, in fact, a gold mine when it comes to value for quick serve restaurants and fast casual. First of all, let's talk about reach. Zero waste. 98% of women's sports fans, as we can see through our sports data cloud, which is deterministic data on the individual transactions of individuals we know are women's sports fans, 98% of them are spending on QSR and fast casual. So zero, no waste, 100% reach of your audience, congratulations. And it's a high value audience. On average, for the QSR category, women's sports fans make 32% more purchases per fan versus the Gen Pop. Now, when you actually look at where they're making more of those purchases, where they're not, are a few of the big guys: Burger King, McDonald's, Taco Bell, and Wendy's. They actually make about 10, 15% less purchases. They're spending there, they're just not going as frequently. So you've got a high value customer who's known to make multiple frequent, more than average, higher index than a Gen Pop spend on the category, but not with you. Where is their loyalty? To some of those brands that did show up for women's sports. When you look at Raising Cane's, more than 33% of the audience of women's sports fans are spending with Raising Cane, and they have a higher purchase per fan index versus Gen Pop. Dave's Hot Chicken, who's been known to do some local and amateur youth sports sponsorships on the community level, 15% of fans are spending there, but they have more than double the purchase frequency. Wings and Things, Rubio's Coastal Grill, another kind of smaller chain that's activating on a community local youth sports, including women's sports level. Chipotle and Jersey Mike's, paying off for Jersey Mike's. Over a quarter of women's sports fans are already shopping at women's sports fans, are shopping at Jersey Mike's, and they're 40% more likely to spend with the AU sponsor than the Gen Pop. So when they do show up, it pays off. And then we wanted to say, all right, well, let's stop just bucketing all women's sports fans. Let's look at volleyball, right? This is an enthusiast, and let me tell you, they love their subs. 85% more likely to be eating at Jimmy John's than the Gen Pop, 60% more likely to spend at Jersey Mike's, and 20% are spending at both. So if you're in the sub, if you're in the sandwich business, you should be paying attention to volleyball. They also are definitely loyal on a regional basis, probably has to do with where we're seeing some volleyball clubs like the Loves and the Pro Volleyball Federation show up for games around Zaxby's and Colger's. Massive over index in terms of spending and achieving over 50% of that volleyball audience spending with the more regional QSR fans. So it's not just all women's sports. When we look at W and NWSL and volleyball, they're showing up for QSR, but you know, this is an undervalued audience for their purchase frequency, for their likelihood to spend, and for their proven loyalty to the category when brands do show up. So I'd love all of us, let us know what you think, if you have any data, if you have any case studies, but this is certainly a category that we're going to be focused on. We're going to be releasing more content, and it's time to bring some of these big QSR brands to the table with us. So we have a little bit of time to check out one other category today, and that's luxury. So, I mean, who doesn't, sit in their Givenchy and chow down on a Wendy's spicy hot chicken, right? Am I right? Who's with me? So we wanted to look at the divide when it comes to luxury brand spending on sports sponsorship, and again, men's versus women's. So the first thing we noticed is just the size of the luxury deals in men's sports. So not only do we see a lot more luxury brands showing up in men's, the discrepancy between how big these deals are is just massive, right? Individual luxury deals. Looking at someone like Tag, I can't even pronounce Heuer? Am I saying that right? Someone put it phonetically in the chat for me. For F1, that's over $1 billion over a decade. But these are massive deals. LVMH investing in an Olympics partnership, Rolex on their PGA deal. These are multi-year contracts with really big price tags allowed them. And shout out to Rolex, who's been a fantastic sponsor of women's sports as well. But contrasting just the sheer size of the dollar deal amounts in luxury for men's sports against that in women's sports. We're not even close to seeing $1 billion deal. And there's limited investment from those brands like an LVMH, who's showing up big in women's sports, where Rolex, you're seeing a lot more parity. We're seeing some of the brands that show up big time in men's sports not show up at all, or just really not even show up in a way that's close to what they invest on the men's side. And the partnerships are a lot shorter term. But again, want to recognize those who have stepped up. Obviously, we loved Caitlin's drip in Prada, and they have a longer partnership there. Fenty with the Liberty, we already started tracking Fenty purchases, and they are up for Liberty fans, so that is paying off. Tiffany & Co., those Athlos crowns are spectacular. The trophies are wonderful, so shout out to Tiffany. And then on the fashion side, again, Off-White and Gucci starting to create ambassadors, starting to lean in here. they really need to lead the charge. We need to see more luxury brands follow because, as with QSR, the data Sports Innovation Lab has shows that women's sports fans are worth it when it comes to luxury. First of all, they're 45% more likely to spend on luxury apparel versus the national average consumer. And it's not just apparel. We also track luxury spending on hotels, on airlines like JetSuite, on fitness. And women's sports fans are 2 times more likely to be boutique high-end fitness enthusiasts. So if you're Orange Theory or Club Pilates, you've got kind of, higher premium membership fees and you're looking for an audience to go after, you should be focused on women's sports. If you're Equinox or Temple or a luxury fitness club, they are almost 50% more likely to join than the average consumer. So it's not just apparel, it stretches all across the luxury category. We are proving that women's sports fans are more likely to spend. And when they do spend, we're seeing higher purchases per fan across the board. So a few specific examples: Coach, their likelihood to purchase increased 20% in the first half of 2025 versus all the years prior. That is after Coach announced their official partnership with the WNBA. And I should clarify, that's WNBA fans. So already within a few months, Sports Innovation Lab is able to see that this investment is actually paying off. Christian Louboutin, 3 times more likely. Kith, 4 times, another one that's already starting to pay dividends for that partnership. And I mentioned Louis Vuitton, not really showing up in a big way for women's sports, but they make 3% more purchases when they shop, and they're almost 60% more likely to spend on Louis Vuitton. So once again, we've got a big disparity in the size of the deal, the length of the deal, and the number of brands who are showing up. But the data shows that when they spend, more of them spend, they make more purchases, and directly following a sponsorship by these brands, we can see an increase in their shopping frequency or the number of fans who are shopping, showing that the awareness is converting to purchase. So how else can you start to prove the value of women's sports fans to these categories? So one way that Sports Innovation Lab is working with a lot of our agency partners and brand partners to do that, or even some of our property partners, is using an addressable audience that includes women's sports fans and QSR purchasers, right? Nothing can prove to a Taco Bell better that they should be sponsoring volleyball, or that they should be sponsoring gymnastics or skateboarding or whatever the women's sports fan, the women's sport is, than giving them an audience and saying, hey, we're the Chicago Sky Taco Bell. We're going to give you an audience of Chicago Sky fans, women's basketball fans who also spend on QSR, and watch how that media audience, which they can run on Meta or Google or LiveRamp or Trade Desk or anywhere that programmatic audiences are accepted, and they can run it against their other media. And they can watch how well that one performs versus a lot of their typical audiences of just kind of national QSR purchasers or, repeat purchasers. So even if you're getting a little pushback, and if you need some help, if you've never worked with programmatic audiences before, or you're building media plans and you want to incorporate women's sports fans, but maybe you are Taco Bell on the call, or maybe you are Chick-fil-A and they're not ready to bite off a massive sponsorship, Sports Innovation Lab, the Women's Sports Club, can help direct you and help you create and find some of these audiences and help you figure out how they can start testing these, how you can sell these yourself and make a margin on them. But we really think one of the best ways, besides taking this deck, and we will share this deck and this call with all of you, and sending this data around and posting it and telling the world just how valuable and underserved women's sports is by the QSR or the luxury category, actually run media against it. And let's show them how women's sports fans convert with an eye towards being specific and savvy around data and audiences for their category. And just a reminder, all our women's sports audiences, like I said, can run anywhere. TikTok, Meta, Facebook, on Amazon ads. We have complete distribution across the entire ecosystem for our Sports Innovation Lab audiences. So I'm going to take a pause, actually. I'm going to jump in the chat, and I want to see if there are any questions on any of the data that I just went through. And feel free to come off Zoom for a moment if you'd like to ask a data-driven question. Hoyer, thank you, Susan. Tag Hoyer, I got it. All right, I must have explained it well. Excellent. Don't hesitate if you do have other questions, put them in the chat, or feel free to kind of do a little hand raise and we'll take you off mute. Awesome. So we want to give a quick shout out. We mentioned our own research, the FAN Project, but there's been a lot of new research that has been released just this year as well. I don't have everyone in here, so please, again, use that chat, drop links to your own research, but wanted to shout out Parity, Give Fans What They Want study, a fantastic survey, a marketing guide, if you will. Check that out. The Gist partnered with the creative agency Barbarian, who are just, you know, have a legacy of being unbelievably creative. They've got a fantastic guide. It covers audiences and opinions and data, and it's fantastic. Download that. And Wasserman's Collective continues to produce fantastic, often global research with their partners on the growth of the entire sector. So again, we're going to put some links in there, put your own in there. Let us know when you have research. Use the Women's Sports Club newsletter to promote your research. Make sure that you know. All right, Simon, we got a question. Come off mute, Simon. Let's hear. Oh, you're still on mute. Hallie, can we help Simon? We might have to do it.
There we go. Can you hear me
All
now?
right. Yeah.
Great. For those who don't know me, I'm Simon Applebaum. I'm the producer and host of Tomorrow Will Be Televised. It's the promo about television, audio promo and podcast on TalkShoe, Facebook, YouTube, and all sorts of great podcast sites. And I'm also the Sports Newswire TV sports commentator. Sports Newswire is a daily news information show, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on the Sports Grid Network. And we do a lot of coverage on both programs of women's sports as far as television is concerned. Gina, I think you made a lot of great points. And I think there's three areas that I hope that your organization is going to take on in the next year. Number one, last year you had an upfront event or a new front event. And I think it was a great way to showcase to the public, to the press, and to the advertisers that you want where things are going. You didn't do it this year. And I think that was a tremendous mistake because this is exactly the information that you could have done an upfront and new front event with. I'm not saying you have to do a splashy event. Do a press conference, do a press event, do a lunch, do a breakfast, do something involves both the advertisers and the press together so that you get your points out. That's one. Number two, I think it's very important that Women's Sports Club really get into the habit of stressing the ability of doing public relations for TV coverage. It is one thing to get women's sports on television. It is another thing to get it promoted. We just had the Professional Women's Hockey League come off a great season, and nobody knew on New York about what was going on because Madison Square Garden Network would not do any publicity whatsoever. No on-air promos, no nothing. And I think this is a thing we need to do more and more of. And third, and last, shoppable ads. We're now getting into a shoppable interactive ad environment, and it's really important that women's services and your organization will take lead. By one other thing, you mentioned the advertising thing. It's really great doing the night event. Do the dates event also, where you can do this information and make it available in a major way.
Thank you, Simon. I love it all. I also wish, you know, that new front was incredible. We will bring it back in some form. It was, honestly, we still are following up on all of the opportunities that were generated from the new front last year. And we developed so many agency relationships, and it's honestly still so hard to kind of permeate and make sure we go from rah to actually in market, that this year we were more focused on getting that last mile and making sure that everything we promoted. But I hear you. It's also not a small check to get on that stage. Let me just tell you. So there's partners that want to get in on it together next year. We can do that too. But I hear you on that. And couldn't agree more. I had a fantastic conversation with someone actually this week about TuneIn. And discoverability is one of the most critical issues that women's sports suffers with. And I think it is absolutely a missed opportunity. And I'm going to actually now combine your points with another question we got in the chat, which is how do smaller properties get involved and utilize some of this data. And I think, using audiences, it speaks a language that agencies and brands, I'm going to go back a slide, already speak. Okay, so if you're a smaller property and you're trying to sell a sponsorship and you go in there and you want $250,000, they're going to nail you on your cost per thousand. They're going to hit you on your reach, and they're going to tell you they have thresholds and they just can't make it work. And I'm not saying to devalue or lower your price, but what I am saying is oftentimes a test and learn or dropping the eCPM, the effective CPM, by utilizing programmatic media, which their agencies already have massive budgets against. If you can find your way into something like that, and we'll help you, we'll guide you on how to create a custom audience that reaches your fans of, again, your gymnastics or your NWSL team or your rugby team, combined with purchasers of their category. You can sell that to him and you can make money off of that. And that brand can get in at maybe a lower cost point or still at a higher cost point, but with more impressions. And a portion of that, I would say, we should force them to put against TuneIn. And again, you can do that when you're using programmatic media that isn't, taking away from your limited inventory across your O&O platform, right? It's hard sometimes when you don't have a big media budget of your own for TuneIn, or you don't have a ton of your own O&O inventory. But if you can utilize programmatic media strategically and make sure it performs, because the best way that brands come back and spend more is when women's sports works for them. You can always find that champion who just has love in their heart, and maybe it's a woman and she played, and so she wants to be the champion and do what's right, and she'll get some budget once. But when her board comes and says, well, how did that work out? And she can't show a positive ROI, you don't often get the renewal. But if you can use programmatic, deterministic media that the agency knows how to optimize and buy at a lower eCPM, that is a great way in and a possible opportunity for more TuneIn media. I see we had another question. UK research. So Sports Innovation Lab right now is mainly grounded. Our data is in the US. So I implore the rest of the club to kind of share any kind of UK based research that you might have. We absolutely do see the momentum though globally in the UK market, especially with the Super League and with football, and just some of the achievements that we've seen from the women's EPL counterparts. And the Super League has just really driven fandom, and we're definitely seeing that. Also increases in sports like handball and some of the emerging sports. Rugby, obviously, starting to take hold in the US with women's elite rugby and world rugby and the sevens coming here. So we're definitely seeing emerging sports become more globalized, which is leading to a general uptick in women's sports fandom. But please, anyone, chime in. Oh my gosh, I love Brian's point. So Brian Lawler from Scripps Sports. Do you want to hop on, or do you want me to promote this for you? This is a fantastic, and you know what? I actually took a picture. I need to make my LinkedIn post. AU was on my favorite, they were playing the AU softball game this weekend at my favorite bar and grill here in Boca Raton, Florida, and that was amazing.
There you go. Well, thanks for having me. It's good to see everybody. The suggestion I said, and we own ION, so we have the rights to the WNBA. We broadcast a 5-hour block of double headers and studio shows on Friday night. We do the same for the NWSL on Saturday night. So, we've provided incredible visibility for both of these leagues. But one of the challenges is that if you go into a Buffalo Wild Wings, they've got 40 TVs, and typically none of them are turned to women's sports. And so on a Friday night, on a Saturday night, if you're ever out and about, ask a manager or a bartender, hey, I know that there's a WNBA game on ION tonight, or on ESPN or CBS. Hey, can you put one of the TVs on it? To get that kind of visibility. And that's something we can all do. That's one small way we can all have control of increasing the visibility of women's sports. So we've been advocating that sort of for the last year or two, and trying to encourage people to take the matters into their own hands and don't rely on on a bartender to dictate what's on TV. Use your voice and encourage them to put women's sports on some of these bigger bars or restaurants. Thanks, Gina.
Fantastic point. And if, you know, maybe we'll do this, but you know, everyone watches women, like we need a t-shirt. We should really galvanize around this, like tell your bartender to turn on women's sports. That is a t-shirt I would buy. We'll put a Scripps logo on.
Count me in.
Yeah, I love it. Anyone else? We got a few more minutes. We want to open it for discussion at this point. We got some resources. I'll end on this slide. Don't worry. We're going to plop all of these links in for you to register for AI, to download our research, to email us for help and guidance through our programmatic audiences, to get more information about sponsoring or joining the club women's sports, meeting up at WNBA All-Star. We will give you this deck, this recording, these slides, so you can post it and we can all shout out Taco Bell to start sponsoring more women's sports. But please go ahead and who else is raise a hand, or please let me know if who else wants to chime in. Ange, any final thoughts? I don't know if you're.
Yeah, I just want to know, I want people to flex now. I want a little, you know, let's leave on a high note. What are the latest deals people have gotten done, money they've raised, partnerships struck? Let's hear the good news and what's going on in our ecosystem.
Who's got something to flex?
Hey, Gina, since it's quiet, I'll hog your conversation today, but we're really excited, and you know, we've been promoting this for the last, I don't know, 2 months, but that we've partnered up with Sports Illustrated, and the last week of October, we will be introducing the first Sports Illustrated women's games that'll be broadcast live on ION all week. It's a 6-day sort of international competition. Think of like the Olympics, and every day we'll have a different sport. So in a Americas versus the world format. So there'll be, you know, basketball one night, gymnastics another night, volleyball. We're going to do a flag football night, and then a night with combat, so judo and wrestling, and one night in tennis. So live, Oceanside, California, a full week of live events. I mean, we've signed, I don't know, more than 50 more than 50 Olympic gold medalists. We'll be competing at the highest level of best athletes from the Americas against the world. It's going to be really fun for brands that, you know, aren't used to partnering in women's sports. Like, we own this and we're building it, so we can be really creative and innovate and do things around your brand. So, you know, feel free to reach out to us, but we're really excited to create this new event that is exclusive to women's sports.
That's incredible. And with World Cup and the Olympics around the corner, the kind of fans wanting and hungering for that type of competition is really on the rise. So the timing for something like that and for brands to get involved could not be more perfect. Brian, thanks for sharing. Sheldon, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
You are pronouncing my name correctly. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm Sheldon Bartlett-Rumer. I'm the CEO and executive producer of This Is It Network. We are a brand new digital streaming platform available on iOS and Android, Apple TV, Roku, and more. We host a women in sports event every year at the Super Bowl. So we're looking for panelists to participate in San Francisco upcoming. We also have some success for those within the emerging brands, emerging media. We have some really nice success within women's health. I don't know if that was something that was mentioned. We work a lot with fibroids, infertility, endometriosis. So we're really telling stories around the women's health, menopause. We're telling stories about the women's health space. So just part of the conversation, happy to talk to anybody who'd like to learn a little bit more about This Is It Network. We're also looking for content within emerging and smaller partners. So again, those, whether it be cornhole, whether it be, you know, a number of different smaller spaces. So please let me know if you'd like to connect. So a lot of wins within women's health for us.
Love it. Fantastic. Exposure Skate and Giga, that could be cool platforms to get some of your content out there as well. Excellent. How about Vanessa?
Thanks, Gina. Hi, everybody. My name is Vanessa Taveras. I'm the Chief Partnerships Officer at Athletes Unlimited. Gina, thanks for the shout out relative to our recent launch of the AUSL, and of course, a big investment from our partners at Major League Baseball. And also glad to hear that you saw it on TV in one of your local establishments. We're proud of our partnerships with ESPN, with FanDuel Sports Network, and All Women's Sports Network, lots of streaming to support it, in addition to support from Major League Baseball and MLB.com. But what I was going to say that I think is new and unique for us right now, and relevant to the conversation about finding exposure for women's sports, is we've put together, our team put together an alliance of women's sports bars across the country. We've had a longstanding partnership with the Sports Bra and Jenny Wynn since a few years ago when she first launched, but an alliance of 16 sports bars across the country that are focused on supporting women's sports, and have partnered with us to commit to showing AU games in their establishments, and we are supporting them by doing tune-in tailgates, viewing parties, those types of things in their establishments. So a nice win-win for both of us. I completely agree with Brian's point and everybody's that let's continue to push for more exposure for women's sports in sort of your standard sports bars and that type of thing. But there's also this growing business focused on supporting women's sports. So we're really excited about where that'll lead for us.
Amazing. I love that. And I love that there's both, let's get it on the bars. Let's get more women's sports bars. Like we got to grow the whole pie. So we all should commit, like this month, especially around the July 4th holiday, we're all gonna be going out more. Like we got to demand they turn on women's sports, because there's enough of it going on right now. Great points, and congrats on all the recent success for AU. We love following AUSL and everything going on. Tara.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I apologize for being late. My call ran over, but I just wanted to say that we had a big win this year. My name is Tara. I'm co-founder of Fantasy Sports Evo. We're a daily fantasy sports app where you pick teams instead of players. We are focused on getting more women betting on sports and more people betting on women's sports. We added the WNBA last year, and I'm proud to say that we are one of 2 daily fantasy sports, although that's kind of sad. We're one of 2 daily fantasy sports apps that offer the NWSL. A lot of them offer women's soccer, but not the NWSL. So we're excited to have that on our platform. I am looking for users, creators, advisors, investors, brand ambassadors, and then any ways to get our story out there in front of people to increase brand visibility. So I'll put my email in the chat, and if anybody wants to connect with me and grow this, I would greatly appreciate it. And hi, Pam. Pam's got a great site. I think she's up next. So it's nice to see you.
Amazing.
So thank you very much.
On locking in that NWSL. Let's all spend more on betting on women's sports.
Exactly. Thank you.
Hi, am I up?
Yeah.
So, hi, Tara. I am the founder of a website called sportshepherd.com, which was actually a direct result of some research that I read over the years from Sports Innovation Lab about things being difficult to find. So my site helps people by having searchable events and viewing information across the landscape. So kind of leaning into that fluid fan behavior, so we don't just have our silos, and getting some of the more casual fans into the mix. So right now, I forget how many, like 24 leagues on, but if your league is not on there, just, I'll put my email in the chat if anyone wants theirs added. It's free to add. But yeah, also looking for a title founding sponsor to help build it out and scale it and get more eyes to understand that there is a hub, and hope to, I also have aggregate of books and podcasts, because again, finding things in one place is difficult. Continue to build that out as I go, but I just went live recently, so give it a look.
Congratulations. Solving discoverability is kind of, we really believe one of the foundational elements that will really help the entire ecosystem thrive. So that's fantastic. And I'd love to, we're going to learn more, and, one day maybe there's ways we're syndicating that information into ad units, and we're using that to train LLM models, because their models still aren't great, if you ask a chat GPT, it still isn't that good at letting you know when and where the games are. So having something like what you're building and using that to point the LLMs toward, as LLMs start to take over search, is going to be fantastic. So I think you might not even recognize the full extent of the value of something you're building when it comes to training those models. We desperately need what you're building. So that's fantastic. Thank you, Pam.
Thanks.
We got a few minutes. Bonnie. Oh, I think you're still on mute, Bonnie. You might have to double click it. Oh, no, we can't hear you. Try again. Hallie, can we help Bonnie? Maybe I can. Let's see.
There we go. How's
Oh,
that?
there we go.
There we go. Hi. How many times have we all had Zoom calls? Bonnie Bernstein, obviously spent many, many years on air at ESPN and CBS with my own production company, actually launching an omni-channel brand coming up this fall called The Athlete Effect. A little different than what, we've had a lot of conversations around today, in that we are more about storytelling, and we are research-based and mission-based. We are taking all of the statistics about the connection between sports participation and career success. The data point we all love to hang our hat on is that 94% of all female C-suite executives played sports. That quantitative data is there. We are the qualitative piece that has really been missing. We are telling the stories about incredible women who are thriving in all industries, who are made by sports, not just women in sports, but women on Wall Street, doctors, lawyers, women in education, technology, media, music, entertainment, across the board. We have a proprietary database of more than 200 women from all different walks of life. Angie's in that database. Shout out Aja. Aja's in our database as well. We have the CMOs of, State Farm, AT&T, the Kansas City Chiefs, It's a pretty formidable list. The podcast will drop in September. We have a TV show in development and all sorts of opportunities for social activations and an impact piece where we're creating grants for girls in underserved communities to get them in the game. So bootstrapping for now, but looking for some amazing founding partners. And we offer value both internally and externally. We can do lots of things through NIL with employee pipeline, client engagement, client retention, things of that nature. So I will drop my email in the chat and would love to talk to anybody interested in partnering. So thank you for the space, Gina and Ange.
Of course. Thank you for all your building. That sounds absolutely incredible. And, wherever we can share the data on how those women's businesses are performing and the fans are giving back to those businesses, we can really close that loop and show the value creation. All right, we got 2 minutes. Troy, take us home. 30 seconds. What do you got? Good to see you.
Hey. Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks for having me, Gina. I love your passion and energy. I love hearing all the great things that everybody's doing. I'll be really quickly, be real quick. I run programming for a large conference called Rally Innovation. I'm actually recruiting speakers for a panel on the growth of women's sports. And I'm also recruiting a panel on women's hormones and health. So if that's of interest to you, I'll drop my email in the chat, but it's troy@woz.org, WOZ.org. Fantastic event. We cover your hotel. We'll cover a speaker honorarium. So I'll leave it at that. But one last thing is that I've never bought season tickets in my life, but last year I bought season tickets to the WNBA Indiana Fever. So I got 4 seats and I'll be at the All-Star game. So let's go.
Awesome. And Sports Innovation Lab has been participating in Rally. I hope to be there this year as well. It's a fantastic event, tons of investors. Troy does an unbelievable job programming that event. So just seconding that. One other quick shout out. I believe Danielle is on from Partake. We had a lot of talk about sports bars. Their app has actually been designed to help create community inside bars for folks who are watching and get more women's sports fans who might be watching alone to come out and watch together. So there's a lot of activity in the sports bar space. I love it. We're right up at 2 o'clock. Thank you to everybody for joining. Take a hold of those resources. We'll be in touch with our next Women's Sports Club quarterly. Let's keep spending in women's sports. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and have a great rest of your week. And I'm Gina at sportsilab.com if you want to chat about anything and everything. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you. Take care.